Hello, everyone. It's Americo. Welcome to another episode of Experience Matters. My special guest today, I'm excited to bring on stage Tim Hughes. Tim, welcome on stage. How you doing, my friend?
I'm well, America. How are you?
I'm doing very well for a Tuesday afternoon. It is allergy season, so my eyes are on fire, or at least they feel like they're on fire. But let me tell you, it's the start to a great week. It was a holiday here yesterday, so we got a 4-day work week.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so it's things are looking well. My calendar is full. I'm excited to have our conversation today. I know it's evening for you, so you're just winding things down
It
after
is,
this.
yeah. I've got a gin and tonic here, and
Fantastic. Well, then, enjoy your beverage.
thank you.
I myself
I've
have
actually got a cup of tea, but
I have coffee as well. Well, folks, for those who do not know Tim, let me share. His area of expertise is social selling. He is the co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite and a renowned uh, social selling expert, also author of Social Selling, Influencing Buyers and Change Makers. Now, he'll be talking a little bit about his book. We'll be talking a lot about social selling. And let me tell you, at the end, if you'd like to buy a copy of his book, I'll put up the QR code to the Amazon link. I'm sure we can all just search it up ourselves, but I'll have that handy for anyone who would like to attend or watch and buy a copy. So, with no further ado, why don't we jump right into the conversation? And why don't you share with us your journey and what you've done to become this leading expert in social selling?
thank you. Very quick. I've been in sales for 25 years. Business to business enterprise. I started off selling human resources software and payroll software, and then I moved into selling financial accounting software. And it would have been 12 years ago. I've been on LinkedIn for 20 years. About 12 years ago, I started getting involved in social media, and I made a prediction that social media would become would take over the world and would be used by everybody, and everybody laughed at me and said it was just a fad and it would go away. And 2016, so 9 years ago, I bumped into a guy, Matt Reynolds, and I wrote my first book, Social Selling. It was the first book on social selling. That's nearly 9 years old. And the book that you're talking about is the second edition, which is I basically rewrote it in 2022 to update it. Social selling, it's in Cantonese if you want to buy that one. It's in Arabic if you want to buy that one, and it's in Estonian. I set up my company DLA Ignite 8.5 years ago with my business partner Adam Gray. We were both working at Oracle. We both left there and decided to set up our own business, and we've been helping organizations transform their sales teams. As well as doing that, we wrote a book called Smarketing in 2018, which if we wrote it today, it would be called RevOps, because it's about merging sales and marketing departments, and that's in Cantonese and that's in Vietnamese.
Oh, that's
So it's
fantastic.
been a bit of an interesting roller coaster.
That is a very interesting roller coaster. I didn't realize, and I guess shame on me for not doing enough research. I didn't realize you had written or have copies in multiple languages. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. So we have a few people who have joined and want to welcome our guests. If you have questions for Tim, please
Happy to take any questions. Yeah.
feel free to drop them either in the chat, and if you'd like to join us on stage, you're welcome to do so. I've dropped the link in the chat, and I'll do that throughout the show. Today, we're multi-streaming across a variety of channels. We are streaming here on LinkedIn and my YouTube channel. Recognizing we have also multi-streaming to Tim's X account, Facebook, and YouTube. So thank you for amplifying and bringing your audience to the conversation.
I'm a restream user, so I'm streaming to 5 different places. Yeah.
That is fantastic. All right, so let's move along here. Let's talk a little bit about the book.
Mm.
And you mentioned that you rewrote it.
Yep.
Now, I would imagine a lot because everything is changing so rapidly. Was there that much evolution in social media and social selling that
Yeah,
decided?
what I wanted to do in the second edition was, so the first edition was really about taking the contents of my head and putting it down on paper. I'd rolled out a social selling program through Oracle. There was about 4,000 people, 2,000 salespeople and 2,000 pre-sales people across Europe. And it was really, I mean, it was really about looking people up on LinkedIn before they went to meetings and stuff. It wasn't, and some of the things that I'd been using Twitter for a long time. And what I wanted to do with the second edition was to take our learnings from DLA Ignite, as well as take learnings from people that I knew that were doing social well, and put them into the book. So it's a more practical book rather than at the first book. Actually, we had no customers at all, whereas we've been going for 6 years with the second book. And so what you get is there's a whole bunch of interviews that I've done with people. It's a far more practical book. It's got case studies. There's a recruitment consultant that's written, I mean, he wrote 2,000 words on how if you want to be found to get a job or found by a headhunter, then this is what you need to do. So there was all kinds of practical stuff in it. It's quite a different book.
Fantastic. Now, one thing that really resonates with me, that the buyer-centric approach. So your book emphasizes on understanding the buyer's journey, and
Yeah.
I've been grappling with this for years, both in my corporate career and today, trying to help people understand the importance of the buyer's journey. And I really, that really resonates with me. But you also touch on cross department integration, and very often when it comes to understanding the buyer's journey and understanding the buyer's persona, we leave different verticals and silos out. And now I don't know if organizations do that with intent or just because they're naive to the fact that they may not have an impact or an influence on the buyer's journey. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. And I try to be myself, I try to be the conduit that brings all those silos together, because there's so much importance and value to understand, even from an HR perspective, understanding the onboarding and bringing the right people in and providing the right training and so forth. It becomes so vital. But content is currency. What were your thoughts around that, and how can we help our listening audience, whether on live or replay, understand the importance that our social presence?
Can I pick off each of those items?
Absolutely,
Okay, right.
absolutely.
So the mistake that everybody makes with social media is you think it's a sales network. And it's not. It's a social network. So what happens is that if I walked up to you on the street and tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Do you want to buy a pension?" You'd tell me to go away and say, "Get lost, weirdo." But people think that they can basically come to social media and do that on social media, and everyone's going to go, "Wow, I'm going to buy whatever you're selling." And of course, people don't. I mean, the reason why you're the reason why you're being successful is that because you're seeing it as a social network, and what you're doing is that you're seeing it as a platform to have conversations, which it is. And what you'll find is that, and we've done loads of research on content and what content works and what content doesn't work. And we know that the best content that works on any social network is personal content. Because what we do when we come to a social network is we want to know about you. What do you do? Oh, wow, you playing football, or whatever it is. And the more that you share about yourself and the more that you tell your personal story, the more people will lean into you. And so when we talk about a buyer-centric profile, we're talking about there's you never get a second chance to make a first impression. If anybody sends you a connection requests, I mean, if I get a spam email, I'll look them up on LinkedIn to see if they exist. And so what happens is that your LinkedIn profile is your shop window to the world. And it's not about your company and your products. Yes, it's your profile. But the moment that you start talking about your company and your products, certainly high up within your profile, the conclusion that I jump to as a buyer is that you're going to try and sell me something. You're going to treat me like a piece of meat, and I'm going to end up in a line in the CRM. And every week you're going to call me up saying, why aren't you going to buy? And this is the mistake that people make. What happens is that people basically reject all of that and basically run away from it, rather than, if it's about you and your personality, we lean forward and we lean into it. So the most important thing that you should have is your LinkedIn profile should be buyer-centric. It should be showing your buyers, the people that you would want to buy, show them insight. Now, if you think about when you introduced me, said, this is what Tim did, and this is, and if we meet customers, we usually go, well, I've got this so much time in industry, and we justify all of that. That should be on your LinkedIn profile, because what your LinkedIn profile should do is it should stop when you're going on calls, you shouldn't need to actually introduce yourself, because it's all been taken place on LinkedIn. Brian Fanzo famously said that social media turns a handshake into a hug, and it does. What it does is it creates deeper relationships, and we should be doing that and seeing that from a buyer perspective. So that's the first point. The second point is about cross-departmental. That what you'll find is, what we all find is that actually the people that are on social are buyers, are customers, are employees, our future employees, our investors, our future investors. Everybody that's involved in the business is on social media. 63% of the world's population is on social media. So what we find is that quite often we talk to organizations about sales, and that's about transforming them away from going out and treating social as a sales network and treating it more as a social network. What we find is that once you actually talk to the sales department, HR actually suddenly realize that if they position themselves on social media, then what happens is that people are actually attracted to the people within HR. And what you're doing is that you're immediately supporting not only your existing employees, but what you're doing is that you're also supporting your future employees. So, because what you'll do is that people will be out there on social and they'll go, God, that looks like a really great company to work for. I'd like to work for it. And then what you're able to do is position yourself ultimately as the employer of choice within your market, because you'll get all the best employees. The third point, which is content is currency. Content is so important. What we're looking for is, from a buyer perspective, if we've got a great profile, content will allow us to show and build trust and build relationships. Because what will happen is you'll look at content and go, that's really interesting. I'm really curious about that, or whatever. It drives people to you. The other thing about content is the fact that a lot of people say that likes and comments are basically vanity metrics. They're not. They're actually modern day prospecting. The reason for that is if anyone likes or comments on your post, what they're doing is that they're basically saying, this digitally resonates with me. Now, the mistake again, what people make is that what they do is that they post basically a picture of a brochure or something, and of course, no one's interested because it's corporate propaganda, and no one's interested in brochures or brochureware or case studies, because they all say the same thing: buy my product because we're great. The reason why you don't get much engagement on those is that if I drop a like on a bit of a brochure that's been posted, basically the assumption is of the person that's posted it is that they're going to come to me and immediately pitch to me, because they think that if I've actually liked a post of a brochure, I'm liking liking the product, and basically, I'm going to say, sell me two, and they're both red or something like that. Whereas if we're actually posting personal content, what happens when we like it is that people aren't expecting to get a pitch. And what they're doing is that they're actually seeing the more that we see of you and you telling your personal and professional story in the content, the better it is. Long time to go over that, but that's going through those 3 points.
No, that is fantastic. I learned myself and made, and like most of us do, we learned by trial and error. And it wasn't until late last year where I realized, hey, I need to do something different about my strategy, because just hitting the keyboard and posting just isn't resonating. And as passionate as I was about what I was posting, it wasn't getting the engagement. And here,
And Michael LeBlanc makes a really great comment there, which is that I posted a picture of my action figure, and I heard from a friend I haven't heard in contact in 30 years. And it's true. Quite often what happens is, especially when you start positioning yourself on social, you will actually hear from people that you haven't heard from before. So we have a client who posted a picture of their new office on LinkedIn. One of their friends who they hadn't spoken to for 20 years basically said, I saw the picture, I'd love to get in contact with you. We have, and I'm going to, the figures are right, $500 million framework agreement that we would like you to bid for. $500 million framework agreement off the back of a post of their new office on LinkedIn, because it was someone they hadn't seen for 20 years.
wow. Yeah, so
Just in
Michael,
case there's anybody out there that thinks that social selling doesn't work.
it does. And I'm noticing, I mentioned to you before we went live, I understand where I am in the ecosystem. I understand that I'm a microscopic creator, and small fish swimming in a large ocean. But I'm following the advice of people that are near to me, people who have mentored me. And you know what? This advice resonates. I talk about it now. Understand that this is a long game. Don't try to nurture and cultivate something and expect overnight success, overnight gratification, because it takes time.
So,
Yeah.
what I'm gonna say is that if you use so we train SDRs, so business development representatives, so people that are usually doing outbound cold calling or email. We train those people, and we train salespeople. And to give you some idea, from if you take a typical SDR, an SDR, LinkedIn will allow you to send 200 connection requests a week. So if people have got a pen and paper, they can do the maths. If you know the right way of doing social selling, you should be getting something like a 60 to 80% acceptance rate on those connection requests that you send out. Of those 60 to 80% acceptance rate, you should be getting calls with 10 to 13% of those people. And you should be, from those calls, getting something like a next action from 34%. These are from the benchmark that we've been running for 26 months now. It gives an average of our clients. That gives you some idea of, I do understand when people say that social selling takes a long time. If you're focused and do it from an SDR perspective, that's the sort of response that you should be getting. That's a best practice response. So if anybody out there says they're social selling, that's the sort of figures that you should be getting.
Well, let's jump into that, because I put out a poll leading up to today's conversation, and the question was, do your team currently use social selling strategies? About 63% as of this morning, 63% of people saying yes, we use social selling actively. Now, I look at this and kind of ponder and scratch my head. Why are people so quick to say that they're using it, but we don't see enough of it? Is there a misunderstanding?
I'm not aware of. I mean, we've got clients like Salesforce, Oracle, people like that, but the majority of people on social media are not social selling.
So let's dive into that. I know you dropped it in the comments when the poll went out, and you defined social selling.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that definition again, just so that we understand the
Good point.
concept?
Good point. So our definition of social selling is using your presence and behavior on social media to build influence, make connections, grow relationships and trust, which lead to conversation and commercial interaction.
So, fantastic. So why do I feel, and I'm trying to be selfless here, but I'm going to ask a personal question. Why do I feel compelled when I'm exercising my DM strategy, my outreach strategy? Why do I feel compelled to tell someone that I'm not here to sell them anything? I'm just nurturing and building my community.
Um, well, I mean, are you saying that authentically or
No, I'm saying that authentically because I'm trying to be proactive to the questions that people will come at me. It's like, I'm not interested in what you're selling. It's like, well, hold on a second. I, if I'm giving out that vibe, then I got to change my invitation strategy. But
there's a number of things that we need to work through. First and foremost is your LinkedIn profile. So if your LinkedIn, you look at pretty much 100% of salespeople's LinkedIn profiles, they look like just another salesperson. There's nothing that differentiates them, and nothing that shows that they have any knowledge of their industry or any knowledge of their customers or anything like that. There's no demonstration on. Um, so first and foremost, you've got to have a buyer-centric profile. You know, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. The second thing is about connecting with people. Most people think that connecting people is about them, and what they're going to do is what they'll either do is connect to you and immediately pitch, or what they do is that they pitch in a message. And as I said before, LinkedIn is not a sales network; it's a
that's right.
social network. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the moment you come onto it and start selling, the response you'll get will be pretty much zero. I mean, I'm talking to a company at the moment that are sending out spammy messages, and whereas we're getting a 60 to 80% acceptance, they're getting something like a 3% acceptance, and I'm surprised they even get that. Because most people who send spam, especially over any network, are not going to be. You
Well
don't build
received.
trust and relationship by sending people spam. So the important thing about if you connect to people is understanding that it's not about you; it's about the other person.
Absolutely.
Um, and um, and the key thing is that you will sell more by not selling, because we all know that it's a bit like when I told the story of if I come up to you and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Do you want to buy a pension?" You say, "Well, who are you?" and go away, weirdo. It's the same. It's just the rules of the world are the same on digital as they are in the real world. You should be saying thank you. You should be saying please. You should be being nice to people, and just thinking that you can basically tap on people's LinkedIn profiles and them suddenly buy. You're living in cloud cuckoo land.
Well, don't we say like, know, and trust?
Yes.
That doesn't happen from a click, right? It
No.
takes time.
Yeah. Well,
And
it can. I mean, if you've got um, if you've got a good LinkedIn profile, a buyer-centric LinkedIn profile, and your job is sales, people understand it, but people will actually give you the benefit of the doubt. And if you don't immediately pitch to people, then again, people will give you the benefit of the doubt. But the more you start seeing LinkedIn as a social network and not as a sales network, the better.
yeah, I totally agree. And I try my best, and sometimes I catch myself sounding salesy and pitchy when that isn't my intention. And you're right, I do get better engagement and better acceptance rate when I just come on live, have a conversation. Like, these live events have really been a game changer for me. I'm not selling anything. I'm here to build community. I'm here to bring value to my community, and I do that through my guest speakers as well as the subject matter. And it's at the end of these shows, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or sometime down the road, I'll get a DM saying, "Hey, I watched the replay on your social selling episode. Uh, I'd like to hear more, or can you introduce me to Tim?" And that was never happening before when I was just jumping on and posting. So there's a tremendous opportunity, and we'll get into it a little later. But I want to just
So Kendra Knowles asked a question that says,
yeah.
would you agree that when you are providing value, the hope is always that they will get to the point where they want to pay for more, even if you have the intention of truly helping? It starts with the value and leads to more. So Kendra, don't be offended, but I don't like the word value, partly because it's meaningless, and nobody knows what it means. And quite often when someone says value, they actually think it's a brochure. So but what you should be doing is you should be educating, you should be insightful. What we're doing here in terms of the providing the free advice. So if that's what you call value, then yes. So the three things that you need to do, that you need to be on social, is you need to have a buyer-centric profile, you need to have a wide and varied network, and you need to have content. So the importance of content is that you are showing up every day and you're showing your expertise, whether it's our clients have this problem, or and this is how we solved it, or better still, because you'll get more engagement, is a variety of variety of content, which will be, this is what I do at the weekend, this is what interests me, because this is what as people and as humans that we're actually interested in. Early days, we're not interested in your company, we're not interested in your products. You probably don't even remember, apart from the fact I've got it on my name here, you don't even remember the name of the company that I work for. And so what we find is that on social, we're connected to people personally, and it's all about personality rather than brand. We're connected to people because of there was a comment down here about from Kenneth Dunner, who said, Timothy Hughes is a gem of a gentleman, of a human being and a friend of mine, and to Million, who shares his goodness and other kinds of betterment of humankind. Now, that is just an amazing statement that someone could make, and clearly I'm doing all the right things, and that's what we need to be doing. Now, the issue with that is quite often what we find is that sales leaders seem to be a little bit more about red meat, and they think it's all about sitting in when we're sharing stuff, and sharing and helping people, it's like we're sitting in a circle and humming kumbaya. And I can tell you that based on the figures that I gave you earlier on, that there is no other demand generation facility that is getting those sort of results. There's nobody cold calling, and nobody is using email marketing in such a way that you can get that level of results. So from a sales leadership perspective, what people need to do is start being led by the data and understanding that you can get this sort of level of results with social, rather than saying, I actually want to hark back to what we were doing 40 years ago. There's a fine line. You build the starter relationship as the conversation moves to the point. So one of the things that we found quite early on is that salespeople couldn't have meetings. They couldn't have conversations. So one of the things that we've had to do is actually, we were getting a lot of people saying, I'm getting the meetings, but the meetings don't work. And the reason for that was that they were turning up to the meetings, treating them like they, what's the budget, what's the authority, what's the need, and what's the timescale. And immediately that's a sales meeting, and that's not what people have actually turned up for. Whereas if you actually have a conversation with people, I can guarantee you 100% the person will actually turn around and say, pitch to me. They don't actually use those words, pitch to me, but you will get an opportunity to pitch to that person. So I was on a call with a marketing leader today, and she said, so what are these meetings like? Because I personally, I don't know, but there seems to be different qualities of meetings. And I said, well, at the meeting, you will be asked to pitch to them. Because if you run the meeting right, what will happen is that there is we humans have this repository that, if you go into a meeting and say, what do you do? The other person's going to turn around and say, so what do you do?
Right.
And then that's your opportunity to pitch. So the thing is that you can get You can get meetings at scale, and then when you run those meetings, you have the opportunity to pitch, and if it's all done without the what's the budget, what's the need and timescale, you can then actually move to which is why we're getting that 34% next action, because people actually feel the empathy in the person, the fact that you're listening to them, rather than you just going on and saying what's your requirements and what's the budget and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I think we may have answered or addressed part of the next slide just in what you've explained, but the essence of social selling, maybe not verbatim, but we touched on digital reputation and how important it is to expand our network, not be salesy, but we're here to build community. And
well, yes. So the key thing is that we connect. You need to be connecting to as many people as you can. The bigger network, if you've got a network of 2,000, it's twice as good as a network of 1,000. And what you need to be doing is connecting to, there's a certain amount of LinkedIn snobbery. So if you're connecting to people senior within an organization, what they'll do is they'll go, right, I've got a connection from Tim Hughes. Who's Tim Hughes? Well, he's not connected to anybody I know, therefore ignore. Whereas if you're connecting to somebody and you're connected to Steve and Dorothy and all within that person's team, and you also seem to know Mark Schaefer and Brian Solis and all of these influencers, the person's going to say, Tim Hughes must be a really good person, I'll connect. So digital reputation, as you say, is critical in terms of making sure that you've got, when you're connecting to people, you've got that they're seeing that you are the whole that you should be. You understand their business. You understand you're connected to senior people in the business and in the industry. The other thing is that when you're connecting into companies, you shouldn't be just connected to one person. You need to be connected to multiple people. And as I said, LinkedIn enables you to send 200 connection requests a week. So you should be using those. Now, if you want to target Ford Motor Company, you shouldn't be just connected to one person. You should be connected to 10 people. And again, back to the LinkedIn snobbery of, oh, look, he's connected to the whole of my team, therefore I will connect. And that's again really, really important. The other thing is about when you're sharing content, and what you're doing is that you're sharing it in a way that gives you visibility. What you'll find is that companies tend to be more connected to each other than they do with outside companies. So we've all been in that meeting in corporate where everybody says, let's connect to each other on LinkedIn. So we all do. And so what happens is that if you connect to put somebody, say, in Apple, the people in Apple will be connected to each other. A lot of people will be connected to people in Apple. So as you actually build out your relationships in Apple, your content will be seen, you get a force multiplier, because what happens is that there is because the people in Apple are more connected to each other, and your connection and the second connection, and that what you'll do is that you're therefore spreading your influence more within Apple, because the fact that they are well connected with each other. And you should be using a network and expanding your network as much as you can. And as I say, not everybody is going to buy from you, but also you need to be focusing on people of influence, because that shows that you are a person of influence yourself.
So I like the word LinkedIn snobbery. It is so well described, and you touched on two things that resonated with me at one point. When I was in my corporate roles, I'd find myself only connecting with people inside my industry, inside or within arm's reach of my industry, suppliers,
Yep.
vendors, and didn't realize how much that was limiting me to grow, and the importance of having diversity and breadth in the community. Because I now get SDRs reaching out. It's like, yeah, I've given up on LinkedIn. I can't sell to save my life. No one's engaging with me. And first and foremost, when you do show up, you're trying to sell, which is
Exactly.
the first mistake. And then the second Second thing you do is your community, because you haven't nurtured it, or because it is, so concentrated on people that you've worked with. You're not talking to your ideal customer. You're not talking to your audience. You're talking to colleagues who are marching to the beat of the same drum.
Yeah, one of the mistakes that salespeople make is the fact that, and this is unfortunately drummed into, especially people in the SaaS industry, is that if you don't buy from me today, I don't care. And so what they're doing is that they go through the network and basically they're throwing people. Do you want to buy? No, right. Do you want to buy? No. Do you want to buy? No. And what happens is that they burn through the network. And what they don't realize is that, and this doesn't seem to be taught or anything, that you may not be the right person to buy, but if I actually showed an interest in you, you may say, but my brother-in-law is. Can I connect you? Oh, yes, please. And there seems to be nothing like that. Or we get a lot of people coming back to us saying, yeah, we talked 6 months ago, but yeah, the politically it wasn't right for us, but can we talk to you now? And because we always leave the door open, we never send emails like, if you don't answer me now, I'm going to close the file or anything like that, because it's so short-sighted to do that. So yeah, one of the things that we found, training SDRs, that we didn't realize, because we were because like a lot of people, we're focused on the numbers. We've got to have great numbers and data to basically put out there. But it was really interesting that the fact was that the SDRs basically said, we've fallen back in love with sales again. Why is that? Well, people actually now want to talk to us. And the number of SDRs that were saying, I was thinking of quitting. I didn't think that sales was for me, because I was, and you can read books on psychology around rejection and the fact that humans, animals, we don't like being rejected. And if you're getting rejected minute after minute, hour after hour, it makes a big impact on you psychologically.
Absolutely.
The other thing was one of burnout. So many salespeople are measured on input, not output. So one of our SDR people that we trained, they moved jobs, and he's actually able to get, he's been able to get 35 meetings a week. Now, there's no other SDR basically can do that. Our SDRs average anything between 5 and 10 a week, which again, no other SDR is able to get. But Jordan, to use his real name, basically was complaining to us because he had so many meetings, he didn't know what to do, and he was getting 35. Anyway, he moved to this other job, and they put him on a personal improvement plan. And we said, why have they put you on a personal improvement plan? He said, because I'm not making, they say I have to make this number of cold calls and I have to send this number of emails, and that doesn't work. We said, well, how many meetings are you getting? He said, well, 10 a week. He said, I can't be bothered to do the other. I can get 35, but they don't seem to want me to do the more of that. So I just get 10. So how much are the other SDRs getting? Oh, about 1 or 2 max. And they put you on a pip because you're getting 10 meetings, but you're not making enough cold calls. It was just bizarre how they were treating this person who was by far making loads and loads of meetings, but because he wasn't working on the inputs, anyway, they shut their European office, and so he then had to move to another job. But we weren't surprised that they shut their European office because they were measuring the wrong things.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Organizations put systems in place because they believe those systems work, but systems get antiquated. Systems drive user fatigue, customer fatigue, and kudos for someone for trying to think outside the box, being as effective. But because they're not following an organization's systems, they've failed in the eyes of that organization. I see this all the time, and it's a shame that it happens, but it is the reality, and we got to try to find ways to help. So if we were going to give any form of advice and tie it to social selling, how can a business effectively implement one thing if you were to give one piece of advice?
I think that businesses need to understand what I've been saying about that social isn't a sales network. And it's very, very, you walk onto LinkedIn and everybody's saying, buy my product because we're great, buy my product because we're great, and ultimately what people have to understand is that all it is a digital billboard, except there's thousands of them. And it's that realization that if maybe I don't look at advertising, but maybe if you're driving down the road and there was one billboard, you might see it, you might read it. But the fact that there's actually thousands, no one's going to read it. And people have to realize this and actually say, okay, what are we going to do that's different? And understanding that we've got loads of data that backs this up, which is that what people are buying into is humanity and people that are being human. And it's about how do we translate the people and our employees and put that out onto to social. And that's one of the things that they need to be thinking about. I mean, I've talked about the three things you need, which is the bar-centric profile, a wide and varied network, and unique content. And the only other thing that I would suggest is that you need to have a strategy. What I see a lot of people doing is what we call posting and hoping, which is that people will, here's me at the sales kickoff, and somehow or other you think that someone's going to pick up a phone and say, wow, that's amazing. Can I buy your product? I want 2 of them in blue. I mean, it doesn't happen. And so why do people keep doing it when nothing happens? The whole point of marketing is that we get some return on our investment. And maybe it's because the investment of putting something on about our sales kickoff, the investment was only our cost of time. So we're not actually measuring it.
So let's pause on that for a second.
Yeah, sure.
And tie in the question and the conversation piece that you and I were having before we went live. Now that sales kickoff, that selfie, where an SDR is at a sales kickoff, that typically is something that is vetted by an organization. Okay, you got the green light, go ahead and post it. Now, when it comes to social selling, and I'll say it first, I'll be the first to put my hand up. I ran into this difficulty wanting to improve my social selling skills for myself and for my teams, but I wasn't allowed to because it was just too much bureaucracy, too much red tape, social media policies embedded in organizations that, what people say, it's not worth the trouble. By the time I get something vetted, the campaign will be over.
Yeah.
Right. So how can we help those sales professionals? How can we help those businesses understand that, hey, at some point, trust needs to be a factor?
Yeah, the important thing is that you trust your employees. I mean, what we do is that we provide companies with a strategy that teaches people how to use social in a mechanism and a process that ultimately will drive revenue. What organizations need to do is actually just as the same as that they teach people how to use, diversity training and health and safety training, and nobody seems to say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do some social media training, and then what we're going to do is that we're going to trust our employees. People buy people, and people,
Absolutely.
the LinkedIn shows that the average employee gets 561% more engagement than the brand. And while a brand is important, for many organizations, especially small ones, it's not important. But the people that and the thing that people are grappling with on, especially marketing departments, is that social is about people. It's about the relationship with me. It's about the relationship with Kenneth. It's about the relationship with Daniel or whoever it is. And therefore, that's the thing that people are struggling with. And what they need to do is that they need to start seeing social as a strategy realizing that they can get, I've given the figures in terms of the if you're converting that level of number of leads that you're getting in, then you're going to be back on the path to growth because of the revenue that you're going to pull in. I'm a sales guy. Everything that we do in this organization is about generating revenue. It's not about fluffy putting flowers on your LinkedIn profile or anything like that. This is about driving business. And I think what happens is that people have become so used to getting no results from cold calling and email marketing and advertising that they expect the same from everything else. Whereas, we're more than happy to share with people the benchmark we've been running and sharing the figures. I mean, I've been sharing the figures with you now anyway. So
Fantastic. So in terms of measuring ROI, decision makers at many businesses, that's the first thing they want to know. It's like, all right, so if I take the time, I train my front line, I trust them, I'm going to buy into this idea, but how do I measure the ROI? Any advice?
Yeah, two ways to measure the ROI. Is the same as what we do with any other sales. Is we measure the number of meetings, the number of proposals, and the amount of revenue. I would always recommend that every business now, especially if there's 60% that are saying that they're social selling, I would be really interested to see the value of revenue that they're driving from it, and from a campaign code. So all organizations should have a campaign code, at least for social selling. Therefore, from measuring it, all organizations should at least be driving 25% of revenue now from social selling. All organizations should be tailing off the cold calling and the email marketing. Funny story, we actually had an email marketing company come to us and say, we're not selling anything. I said, yeah, but you're doing email marketing, aren't you? And they say, yeah, our email marketing system doesn't work. So they actually got us to teach them how to do social selling. So they're actually social selling an email marketing system that doesn't work. Which is maybe it's I'm British. I love the irony of the fact that they're social selling an email marketing system that doesn't work.
I love that. I was late to the email game. In fact, so late that I had my heels dug in really deep when it came to email marketing for a multitude of reasons. I put out my first email campaign yesterday just to prove to myself that, hey, is there hope for email, or am I going to prove myself right? And my gut was right. It's fascinating that you had an email marketing organization approach and say that what they were selling wasn't working.
Yeah. So there are other there's some so those are the key metrics that we would recommend you measure. But there are a whole bunch of digital metrics that you can basically measure, which are really interesting from a sales leadership point of view, because by you looking at those metrics, the digital metrics, you can see who in your organization is contributing and who isn't. And when I was in leadership in Oracle, that was one of the things that we had to run a 95 to 98% accurate forecast. 95 to 98% accurate forecast. I thought I'd say it again. Yes, that's how accurate it had to be. It was so important to understand who was contributing and who wasn't. And we did things like we used social media. So because it was Oracle, we had our own Slack product. But we used Slack. One of the ways was using social as a way of understanding who was contributing and who wasn't, and how the deals were basically working. And then what you're able to do is you're able to measure certain digital aspects about what the salespeople are doing. Again, it's about sharing who's contributing and who isn't, which is so important from a sales team. Because as a leader, you go, salespeople are just fantastic at bullshit. But you can actually see the metrics and the data about who is working and who isn't.
That's fascinating. I'm going to share a story that takes me back to when I was leading sales teams in terms of common challenges. And I tried to the best of my ability to convince my sales team of the benefits of social selling. Some would adapt, some would adopt, and others would just say, you know what, it's not my responsibility. I'm here to convert sales. I'm marketing. That's a marketing job. I need marketing to focus on social selling to bring me leads, and I'll convert those leads. Now, from your perspective, from your lens, and having had so much more experience with a more diverse group of clients,
Yep.
what challenges would you say you've come across when it comes to social selling?
I've come across all of those things, and there's various answers to it. At Anaplan, we basically taught salespeople and marketeers, mainly because they were having some sort of, it was more of an account-based marketing thing. But what we did was that the more people in your organization that are connected into your target accounts, the better, because they're going to see more of your stuff, and you're going to become more and more front of mind and be the obvious choice. So getting non-salespeople, technical people, or pre-sales people, or marketing people to connect in is important. You can use marketing people can do social selling and can be lead generators if you want. In many organizations at Ring Central, the sales leadership there were very, very clear that there needed to be a prospecting culture. And the guy who ran the UK, I remember him coming into one of the meetings and explaining to all the salespeople that he'd spent all Saturday prospecting. Because prospecting has to come from the top. It's not something that, that's what a prospecting culture is. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can cut the cake. Most sales organizations that I talk to say that there's a number of leads that need to be generated by sales, whether it's 20%, could be anything up to 80%. You can't, and for me as a salesperson, I don't think I ever got a lead from marketing. I was never a person that wanted to outsource my success. And the ability for me to earn to somebody else. I wanted to do it myself. I'm a new business salesperson, and I'm very good at alchemy in terms of turning stuff into sales. So there's all of those things. The other approach is that Telstra, basically, the people that said that they either didn't want to do it or found it difficult, they actually paid for extra coaching, and we basically coached those people. And at the end of the 6 months, they generally still said they didn't understand or didn't want to do it. And the other approach was a company that I work for that I mentioned, but I won't mention them in this sentence, was that we fired them.
Yeah.
They weren't the people that we wanted in the business.
Yeah,
we decided that life had moved on. There were certain key skills that were required of salespeople, and an ability to basically have digital conversations and walk digital corridors was one of those skill sets. And if they didn't want to have them or didn't have that, they left the business.
Fantastic. It's sometimes it's a decision that needs to be made.
So yeah, from extra, there's lots of different ways of cutting the cake, from extra coaching through to saying goodbye.
Excellent. Well, all right. We're reaching the top of the hour, and we're right on time.
So can I just butt in and say,
absolutely.
So what we've done with AI is that I've taken the business through a complete transformation in terms of AI. Part of that, within our organization, we have to have a philosophical discussion about AI, and so that's one of the things that we've done. And we've actually now created an AI teammate I'm really proud of the culture that we have, which is that one of our team said, I need to think about this. And he went away and he's created this sales teammate. And it's just amazing. And we're just in the process of talking to people about it. We don't know whether to take it to market or we'll bundle it in with all of our social selling training and coaching. But we've now basically taken AI all the way through the social selling training. We don't believe that anybody, if people go to the board and say, we're looking to train our salespeople in social selling, someone in the board is going to say, what's AI got to, what's AI involved in it? And we have to have an answer for that. If we don't have AI involved, we're not relevant as a business. So what we've actually decided, and we've actually all the proposals that go out now in the coaching part of the training that we do, we have the skills to take the salespeople through. Basically, we'll train them in AI, right from, it could be from prompt writing, though a lot of people kind of know what that a lot of people know what that is, right through to, it may be even actually helping the salesperson to build an AI teammate. And that's what we do when we coach. We know that we're going to have knowledges from 0 to 100. And what we have to do in our coaching is make sure that we bring everybody along on the journey, regardless of what their own knowledge base is. So that's what we've done with AI, and it's interesting. We're having some really interesting conversations about AI, and I've had a couple of speaking engagements to talk about AI as well, which was, I see myself as an AI novice, but I actually was teaching some entrepreneurs about how to set up a business through AI. Which I was very flattered about being asked to talk about. So that's what we're doing with AI.
So AI from a coaching and training perspective, opposed to AI as a prospecting perspective.
Yes. So the AI teammate that we've created supports the things that I've been talking about today. Now, we're never going to get into the business of sending spammy emails or making cold calls. That's not what we do. And I'm not, as a business, all we do is we focus on social selling. I'm not interested again in getting into sales compensation and things like that. But in terms of outbound, inbound, revenue generating, using AI to do that within the sales and marketing environment, we're very much doing that. And we've, as I say, we've come a long way over the last 18 months, and I think the teammate that we've created is looking really good.
So this is and I'm a novice as well when it comes to AI. So what you're talking about is a GPT that you've created?
Yeah, we've created it in Gemini because we're a Google house,
right?
But you could move it into ChatGPT. I'm a ChatGPT user, but yes, so it sits within Gemini. And we're pushing it as far as the memory. It's as we actually need more memory, but it will be a great tool, and we're doing a lot of work and development on it to enhance it. We see it as a really good place to focus time.
That's fascinated to hear more about that as time progresses. In terms of building community, the future as I see it, and I'd like to get your thoughts. Building community kind of goes hand in hand with this whole video dominance. Now, I'm not one, and I know I won't have any success at posting my short videos and dancing around and trying to bring value to my audience there. My value I see is in this medium that we're engaged in.
And look at the lovely comments that you've got in the I mean, come on. If you need to screenshot those, and if you're ever feeling down, you get them out and read them.
No, it is great. I do go back to the replays.
Thanks, Daniel.
And go through the comments, and from time to time I will share the comments, because it's no different than getting a 5-star Google review. Customer sentiment and audience sentiment is the same, and I value it just as much.
Yes.
So
the most important thing about a podcast is the audience. The second most important thing is the guest, and the third most important thing is you.
Excellent advice. Any thoughts other than what we're covering here? We've talked about AI, community building, and video dominance. I'm not a big fan of the whole immersive experience. It kind of makes me a little nauseous when I'm immersed in that metaverse. Uh,
I do. I get seasick. I not seasick. I get travel sick. So it's the same with the people are starting having these banners on LinkedIn
mhm.
that move. They make me ill.
Yeah, I had to take mine down.
I can't look at anybody who's got a profile of that. So
Yeah,
if you're watching this and you've done it, stop it because it makes us sick.
yeah. I put it up and instantly I said, yeah, I don't like it. It almost induces vertigo because
It
you're
does. It does.
you're
It gives me a headache. I can't look at anybody's LinkedIn profile, which is the pointless thing. Anyway,
all right.
did
So
you? What's the next slide? What's the next slide? Because we're kind of at the time, aren't we? And people are starting.
this is the last slide.
Okay, there was one
We
about where you could buy my book. There wasn't there?
Oh, that's not a slide. That's a QR code. So
Okay.
we're gonna wrap this up, and let me just pull up that QR code. And why don't you share with our audience um, a little bit about this book and others that you had? I know those who were at the beginning of the show had the privilege of um, hearing all the other books that you've written, but I've
Well,
dropped the QR
just
code.
one's enough.
Yeah, I've dropped the QR code for social selling techniques to influence buyers and change makers. So if you're interested in Tim's piece of work, feel free. We have people scanning the QR code as we speak. So that's fantastic. And how can people reach out and get a hold of you? I know
Uh,
you've got quite a large community
I do. I
on
do.
LinkedIn,
The
but
best place to get me is on LinkedIn. I'm Timothy Tim Hughes. Um, yeah, that's the best place to get me. Yeah.
all right, so let's bring up that QR code just for a second here. Those who are not following Tim can do so. It is Timothy Tim Hughes. If you enter Tim or Timothy, you'll find him on LinkedIn. Tim, I want to thank you. It is with much gratitude that I say this. I appreciate you coming on the show
Hey, you're
and
welcome.
sharing the stage with me on subject matter that is near and dear to myself and a business that I'm trying to build and scale myself. There's so much value, and I'm trying to help colleagues in an industry that I've exited who I know aren't leveraging social selling to its fullest ability. Some of that is because their employers don't trust and restricting them, but there are different ways that we can approach this so that we can build and nurture that trust. So
Yeah, if
and
you notice the book, it goes to Amazon.ca.
oh, that's my default. So
Well, I'm
you can, yeah.
Amazon.co.uk. If there's a particular subject that you want to focus in on that we could do another show on, like if there's people that have been laid off, and what we could do is we could sit and talk about how people that are either searching or thinking of moving jobs and how they can use social to do that. Happy to do that.
Fantastic. I will take you up on that offer. All right, so let's be respectful. We are past the hour. I want to once again thank you and everyone
Thank you, and
who
thank everybody and for wonderful comments and the engagement. It
absolutely
makes the show.
fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to close the room in 3, 2,